Okay, are we ready? Well, good morning, and welcome to Lancaster County Board of Commissioners meeting. We appreciate your attendance, and for the viewers, we thank you for tuning in. For introductions, on my left is Commissioner Deb Shore and Commissioner Todd Wilchin. On my right is Vice Chair Commissioner Larry Hudkins and Commissioner Bill Avery. And I am Commissioner Roma Amundson, Chairman of the Board. And will you join with me now in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and thank you. And I just noted, we have the tips.
Yeah, we have the
On the
spears and the
flags.
eagle.
Yeah, the spears and the eagle.
I made
So,
a call last week, and Jeannie Slayer says they're coming, and they're here.
and
So,
they're here. Well, it's very nice to have that. So, Mr. Clerk, will you begin the agenda, please?
A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the wall at the rear of the hearing room. Additionally, a copy of all written material to be discussed at today's open meeting is available from the county clerk's staff. The material can also be viewed on the county's website at lancaster.ne.gov. Agenda item 1 are minutes. Approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2015.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Please call the roll.
Avery,
Yes.
Hudkins,
Yes.
Shore,
Abstain.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4 yes, 1 abstention. Number 2 is claims. Approval of all claims processed through March 10th, 2015.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the claims. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Hudkins,
Yes.
Shore, Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 3 is special presentations. Recognition of the Always in Stitches art exhibit at the County City Building. Shelley Burge.
Well, welcome, Shelley.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good
Thank
morning.
you for the invitation to come before you this morning for a few minutes and express my thanks for having this space available in the County City Building. I appreciate having my art displayed in a public building like this where people carrying out their everyday business coming to the building get to see some of my artwork. It's been really a wonderful experience for me. I did bring a few other pieces of my quilts and tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a quilter for over 40 years, and I know what you're thinking. Well, she must have started as an infant. I did start very young. I learned to sew when I was 4 years old. My grandmother taught me to sew on a little toy hand crank sewing machine. We would make doll clothes together, and it wasn't until I got married that my husband's grandmother, who was a quilter, got me interested in quilting. And it's been a love I've followed now for many years. I'm very inspired by living in the state of Nebraska. A lot of my quilts reflect living in a Great Plains state. The sunrise quilt that you see in the gallery space reflects a beautiful Nebraska sunrise. I'm inspired by the flora and fauna of Nebraska, and one of my quilts I brought with me this morning reflects that with a Nebraska state bird.
Oh, wow, that's
That'll work.
beautiful.
Wow.
And you'll notice
That,
That should work.
you'll notice the windmill behind it.
mm-hmm.
Reflected kind of in the clouds, the sky.
Well, that was just
stunning.
just a picture of the plains out west.
Thank you. Actually, that quilt was also inspired by a quote from the book by Will Cather, where it talks about, in the book My Antonia, about the meadowlark setting on the fence post, yellow breast ablaze, singing into the sun. So that was also the inspiration to help me pick the colors for that quilt. Sometimes I'm inspired by the fabric that I make. I dye and paint a lot of my own fabrics, so sometimes just an interesting piece of fabric that I create inspires me to make a quilt. And of course, I take my artwork seriously, but sometimes I like to express a little humor in my quilts too. So this one, growing up on a farm on an acreage just outside of Lincoln, and so you always had to watch out for things on the road.
roadkill.
It's called "Why Didn't the Chicken Cross the Road?" Well, it tried, it just didn't make it. And I had a very good reason for making a roadkill quilt. Our Nebraska State Quilt Guild, I'm one of the founding members of that organization, had a fowl frolic, and that was to raise money for the museums all across the state of Nebraska to help them better preserve their quilts. So I made this quilt, and I thought, well, there'll be several other roadkill quilts on, but mine was the only one.
Yeah.
And I did win an award that night at the Fowl Frolic. It won the Rotten Egg Award, which is a wooden clothespin and a really nice gift certificate to a local quilt shop. So I'm always, inspired by things I see, experience of I had, politics that I'm interested in, and sometimes just interesting fabrics. But I really appreciate the opportunity to display my work here at the County City Building. I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Well,
Roma?
thank you so much. Yes.
I share your passion for quilts. My mother's an active member of the Omaha Quilters Guild and probably has done, I don't know, over 50, maybe 75 quilts. And so you mentioned the artistry and the color selection, but there's also the math and the geometry that is behind it as well. So obviously you're a multi-talented person.
well,
So
thank
thank you for sharing your art with us.
Thank you. Can I answer any questions for anyone?
Well, I just was going to mention that I remember when I was a little girl, my grandmother and mother quilting, and I have some of those quilts on display in the house. So
That's a wonderful legacy
Yeah.
to have. I didn't have any quilt makers in my family. Yes, sir.
Always enjoyed my grandmother. I mean, she never threw away a scrap of cloth, and she'd even weave the cloth rugs. But I have a cousin, Valerie Vobach from Valerie Whitty from Utan, Nebraska, that's very active in quilting, and it's always a joy just to go through and then to have the Quilters Museum right here at 33rd and Holdridge is really an asset for this state.
Yes, I go in and volunteer at the International Quilt Study Center, and I feel very, very lucky to have that opportunity here in Lincoln.
Thank
well,
you.
thank you.
Next is the Lancaster County Visitors Improvement Fund grant in the amount of $150,000 to the City of Waverly for improvement of Lawson Park. Julie Latimer, Visitor Improvement Committee Chair, Jeff Mall, Lincoln Convention and Visitors Bureau, Executive Director, Mike Werner, Waverly Mayor, Doug Ricks, Waverly City Administrator, and Noah D., Waverly Parks and Recreation Director.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, Jeff Mall with the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Julie Latimer, Chair of the Visitors Promotion Committee.
And I think by way of process, what we'll do here a little bit is talk about the process that we have going through the Visitor Improvement Fund with the VPC, and then give the folks with the City of Waverly a chance to talk about their project. One thing that I will point out is the sports market right now for Lincoln, Nebraska is, from a tourism standpoint, our #1 demand generator for overnight rooms in the county. Over the last couple of years, 80% of our bookings by the Convention and Visitors Bureau have been in the sports market, and that is primarily youth sports. So it's youth baseball, it's youth soccer. A very up-and-coming sport is youth hockey, which we've obviously been through a lot of discussions with growing Lincoln's ice capacity. So we're excited when projects like Lawson Park come forward because it enables us, from a Convention and Visitors Bureau, to have more inventory to sell, more opportunities to book larger tournaments into our community. So on a day like today, when it's going to be 71 degrees, we've got the home opener for Husker baseball. I find it very exciting that we're going to talk about a baseball project inside Lancaster County. And it further emphasizes that tourism is not just a City of Lincoln project, it is a county-wide initiative. So to have a community like Waverly come forward for these funds is exciting for us, but it's something that we want to look forward to. And I would tell you right now that the #1 need that we see from a Convention and Visitors Bureau is we need more ball fields in Lincoln and Lancaster County. So this is just a small example, and I don't mean small by their project, a small example of the entire need of our county. So these are indeed exciting times. So the Visitor Promotion Committee met on February 11th, and we'll talk about the recommendation and then give the folks from Waverly a chance to present.
Well, as you know, the role of our committee is to vet these grant requests so that we can kind of go through some of the hard questions, hopefully making your process a little bit easier. So these are some of the things that we considered as we looked at this grant request. It is by the City of Waverly. I'm going to let these gentlemen go through some of the details of the actual request, but it is for completion of the city's $1.9 million Phase 2 enhancement of the 37-acre Lawson Park. These are the things that we reviewed. We reviewed the fact that it's 13 miles from Lincoln, part of Lancaster County, and the fact that Waverly's grown by 34% in the last 10 years and is expected to double in 25 years. Not only does it want to request, our committee's goal is to look at the tourism component of this and its potential draw. So we looked at the fact that it's not only to address its own community needs, but also host regional, state, multi-state baseball, softball, and soccer tournaments. The addition of lights in this project would double the projected use of the fields. So we reviewed a substantial amount of information, which these gentlemen are going to present, but we have voted to recommend this grant request to your committee, or to your commission. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you can tell, Mayor Warner.
Would you identify
Oh, I'm
yourselves,
sorry.
please?
I'm Doug Ricks, City Administrator in Waverly. And per the prior introduction, Mayor Warner wasn't able to make it, but instead we have our Park and Rec Committee Chair, John Toy, and as I indicated earlier, our Rec Director, Noah Day. So, do you want to summarize it then?
Okay.
Do I need to sign in then?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'd like to thank the commissioners for this opportunity to come and talk to you about our project. We're very excited about our community and we're looking forward to the future, and this is important for us, for our community and its growth in the years ahead. We have an unmet need. A lot of our youth are looking for fields for practice, let alone playing time, and we're hoping we can meet some of those needs right at this particular time. At the present time, Lawson Park in Waverly consists of one Legion baseball field, a large parking lot, and basically a walking trail. But our vision, and I'm not quite sure how to turn this particular thing on, but we do have our, if we can get that. We have a concept plan here too, so there we go. But the concept, as we're looking at this particular park at the moment, we have our existing Legion baseball field, which is the one around with an orange area around the field. Basically have a parking lot and basically a walking trail, but we're using porta potties at this particular facility at the present time. We're out fundraising, and our goal for this particular project is to add 3 additional ball fields, a restroom concession stand in the middle of the project, handicap parking and access, and several other amenities, including a maintenance building. Our project does have a phase 3. We're here to talk to you about phase 2, but just to briefly let you know, we plan to expand this park with multi-purpose fields on the south end of our park, and we have a nature exploration area that we feel will meet a lot of people's needs. And also we'd like to add a handicapped accessible playground because we feel there's an unmet need at our facilities in Waverly right now. Basically, we're kind of bursting at the seams. We have, with your money, if you're so inclined, it would get us up to $1.8 million of our $1.9 million project. So we're very optimistic about this particular project. I'll turn it over to Doug, our city administrator, and let him kind of talk a little bit about the economics and our goal of getting a hotel to town.
We had a hotel feasibility study done last year. It was completed last fall, and the study summarized that Waverly could support a 50 to 60 room facility. As a result of that study, we have 3 different hotel companies very interested in building in Waverly, and we've targeted our top choice. We met with them over 5 hours last week, so we're working on local investment. If all goes well, they'll start construction this fall and it'll be completed by summer of 2016. And in part of their data, it was based on this sports complex being completed and being able to host tournaments. So this will further enhance the lodging tax collected from the county. And with the hopefully approval of the grant request, we will be able to light all 4 fields, which is essential to hosting tournaments. And then the bids are due today at 2, so we're hoping we can get a bid within our budget so we'll be able to do all this. So there has been a lot of interest. So,
Making good progress.
yeah. Talk about the sports program.
Yeah, I'll just follow up with This is a much-needed project for the community of Waverly. Being the Park and Rec Director in town, I've seen the programs grow over the last 8 years. For example, just the baseball, softball programs from 2008 to 2014 grew about 27%. And our soccer programs actually grown 49% from 2008 to 2014. And just this year, we had another 80 registrations on top of that for soccer as well. So it's growing pretty big jump this year as well. So this project in all is going to be a great addition to the community of Waverly to help host tournaments, keep those people in Lancaster County, in Waverly, at home to play home games as well. So.
Okay.
I'd like to talk just briefly about the economics of this particular plan. Did you have a question or?
Well, I was going to ask about the economics because I know that's 1.9 million.
Right. And the $1.9 million, we have an initial contribution from our city of $1.3 million. We have a $150,000 grant from the Game and Parks Commission, which are land and water conservation funds. We've raised $50,000 of various monies from various sources. We have a grant out for the Baseball Tomorrow Fund for $55,000 that we haven't heard. That's in process. But if you're so inclined to give us the $150,000, our city has agreed to match all monies up to $200,000 that we're able to raise between now and September 30th of 2015. Those monies altogether would get us up to about 1.8 of a $1.9 million project.
Yes.
So will you start construction this spring then, and will the existing field still be available?
Our plans to start, we have just the one field at the park at the moment, and that field's going to be used by our high school baseball team, and the Legion field will be the baseball team, Legion baseball team will use that field. But our plan is to start construction in July and basically have this pretty much completed by December and be ready to play ball by March of 2016. That will be when the high school ball team will be going. But the problem is right now we don't have lights on any of the fields at this particular park, so that's a pretty integral part, and your contribution will help us get to the lights.
And then the follow-up question with regards to field access, that continuing relationship then with the CVB, if they're bidding on larger tournaments and need to access your fields, how does that process happen? Don't know yet.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that'll come to place just like anyone else in Lincoln or any other teams outside of the community. They'll fill a form out, and obviously if it's a bigger tournament that it'll be maybe nationally hosted, it will have to do that out probably a year in advance, I would think. And then we'd just make sure that there's a weekend that'd be available, and we'd have that tournament. So.
Okay, sounds good.
And we would say we have an obligation to meet our citizens' needs, but we are open to, obviously it's good for the community and the county to host tournaments.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Any further questions? Okay. Well, thank you. It seems as though you have really you made good progress. So, thank you. Okay, Mr. Clerk, will you read corresponding, let's see, it's 4A, corresponding item 4A.
Lancaster County Visitors Improvement Fund grant contract in the amount of $150,000 between Lancaster County, the sponsor, and the City of Waverly grantee for improvement of Lawson Park. Term of the contract is July 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2015.
I move approval.
Second.
So moved and seconded that we approve the improvement grant fund for Waverly. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Hudkins,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. B is a special events permit application from Flatwater Cycling to hold Lincoln Industries Grand Fondo Bicycle Race on Saturday, May 16th, 2015.
Ron Fondo, what the heck that means.
Good morning. My name is John Leffler. I am the ride director for the Lincoln Industries Grand Fondo, which will be held Saturday, May 16th. Just a quick note, we weren't able to get this changed in time, but I did talk with the folks in the office, this is not a bicycle race that we're talking about today. This is an organized ride, which is very different than a race in that we're not going to be needing to close any roads or do anything along those lines. I've been putting on bike races and rides for 15 years, and there's a very big difference as far as the traffic assistance that's required when you're putting on a race versus a ride. The ride is, there's two options. That day there will be a 100-mile option and a 60-mile ride as well that will take us from the Lincoln Industries campus at 600 West E Street, and we will head south out of town. We will have off-duty Lincoln Police Department officers that will help us because of the number of riders we're expecting, which could be anywhere from 125 to 175. They'll provide traffic assistance to help us get out of town safely. Once we do hit the end of their jurisdiction, Lancaster County deputies will take over, and I've spoken with Captain Leffler about that. No relation, by the way. He will be, there will be, I believe, 3 off-duty deputies that will manage traffic control for us, specifically on some of the turns. If you can imagine driving on Denton Road, for instance, and you see all of a sudden 60 riders all turning onto the road, that might, give a driver pause. So we want to make sure that there's something visually for them as they're approaching some of these turns to help slow down traffic a little bit. Once the riders make their way into Denton, which is one of the first stops on the route, and I did send a detailed map with turn-by-turn directions to the folks in the office, things are going to spread out for the most part. We are not going to have a group of 100-plus riders together for the entire ride. Things will definitely thin out quite a bit. But up until that point, and for the riders that will be doing the shorter 60-mile route, the deputies will be there to help with traffic assistance, getting them around through turns, across roads, what have you. So we do have our traffic assistance in place. They asked me to be here this morning, so I would, if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, well, sounds like a very, I don't know if I could do 100 miles.
Well, we were planning on you being there.
Oh, my gosh.
Have to check out the
You were going to comp your entry and everything, so we have a bike for you ready to go.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, hey, I appreciate that. All right, well, I thank you so much. I think that's it. Okay, John?
All right, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
You bet.
I would move approval of the special permit for the flat water cycling.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this permit. Any discussion?
I would just ask if Sheriff Wagner would have any input, if there's any concerns that the sheriff's office has.
I think you should draft Chief Deputy Blymeister to actually do all 100 miles so he
I
can
think
get
he
a
could-
real hands-on feeling for it.
He might.
And he could definitely do
He could
it.
act in my stead.
Yeah.
No, they've addressed the concerns that we have, and it's pretty well organized.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this permit. Let's see, please call the roll.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Hudkins,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. 4C is appointment of official stats to the Lancaster County Board of Zoning Appeals for a 5-year term commencing April 15, 2015.
Oh, well, please come forward, Herschel. And I would like to mention that he is a fellow beekeeper.
Comes highly recommended.
Who's highly recommended. So all the buzz is about bees.
Well, I'm glad to be here this morning. I guess I'm here to introduce myself because I know I met 3 of the board members, but a couple of them I have not met before.
And for the viewing public, please.
And pardon?
And please introduce yourself for the viewing public.
Herschel Stats. I grew up on a sandhill farm in Kansas and taught vocational agriculture, and I got 3 degrees from Kansas State University, which I get no respect from Kansas or Nebraska either one in football season. I taught here at the university, and I taught Southeast Community College. During the 80s, I spent a lot of time consulting with farmers going through bankruptcy. That was a kind of a interesting time in our history. And I've been a member of the Lancaster County Farm Bureau since '85, so I have a pretty firm idea of what's going on in agriculture and education and the farm management end of it. Any questions?
Well, you realize this is a job without pay, and
I really,
and we appreciate you stepping up to it. Gary Bergman, our former agent chairman for Extension, served on this board, and you'll find several other members. Lynette Nelson is one of the members as well. And we don't call on you very often, but once in a while when we have a unique problem, we want to get a view of the Zoning Board of Appeals view on it and a recommendation to the county board. And so that's basically what it entails, and we're certainly glad that you're willing to accept the appointment. And I would move approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve Herschel Stats for this Board of Zoning Appeals. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Hudkins?
Yes.
Avery?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
And carries 5-0. 4D is a request for an exceptional circumstance award under Personnel Rule 17-9, bracket B, for Candace Meredith, real estate manager, for a one-step pay increase.
Okay. Is there a treasurer? Would someone want to come forward?
Thank you. I think it was
Identify yourself, please.
Andy Stebbing, Lancaster County Treasurer. Was it last week or the week before we spoke and discussed in depth about this pay raise, merit increase, and the Personnel Department wanted to clean up the language to make it much more detailed, but I think it's been voted on already once.
Yes, it has
so
been.
I just ask respectfully that you approve it as you did last time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes.
Mr. Stebbing, could you explain to me what criteria you use to determine exceptional circumstances?
Mr. Avery, what part are you referring to?
Well, this is an exceptional circumstances award.
This all transpired, and I'll refresh, this was back on, I think it was February 10th that we brought this to the board. And that was for Candace's real estate management, where we moved her from one class to another class. And this was included in that discussion that she would go from a step 3 to the step 4. And apparently, and this was all voted on by the board.
Yes, it was.
This is what's confusing as to why this has to come back. But according to personnel, that to move her up, this is really interesting, that I had to write a letter, and he had to sign a letter, that it would be for an exceptional circumstance. And apparently not because the board can vote that she can be moved from a step 3 to a step 4. So we had to go through the hoops for personnel. And so basically this is because Candace has taken on so many more jobs than she had prior to this. She's become our personnel person. She does all the personnel stuff. She does all the real estate stuff. She does a number of jobs now that we combined so that we could have more oversight, better oversight than, everybody. This was all strung out when I came in. So we kind of brought it under all one roof here so that we can have a lot better oversight. The board approved the raise. This is the raise from one class to another class. And the board approved from Candace going from step 3 to step 4. So apparently this is the only way, according to personnel, that we can do this, is we have to call it an exceptional circumstance.
And I think that Mr. Egan has got a point.
If
If I could provide a little bit of clarification. The action that the board took a couple weeks ago was to create a new range, pay range for Kansas.
Okay.
Or Kansas. It was a different job description. The personnel policy rules provide that in that situation where a person's range is raised, they automatically go to the next highest step in the new range. So it'd be a one-step increase essentially in pay. What we've done here is a two-step increase, and that's where the exceptional circumstance award is required, because the rules would provide for a one-step increase in the normal progression, but based on her duties and the scope of the work, the treasurer felt that the two-step increase was more appropriate. So the action the board took last week was to approve the new range. This action is required to actually make it a two-step increase rather than a one-step increase.
Okay.
And to refresh the board, the reason we did that is we wanted to make her and Don, because they both are basically managers, Don DMV manager, Candace real estate manager, we wanted to bring them up to the same pay scale, so that so it's equal, and it should be equal. They're doing, although it's a different job, they're still managers. So that's why we wanted to get them to the same pay scale.
Yes.
Finished. Did you have to justify the exceptional circumstances award? Or you just write a letter saying, we hereby state that this is exceptional circumstance?
Under this situation, circumstance, that's all we needed to do is say that we want her to go to step 4 for exceptional circumstance.
You didn't have to establish it, or
Well, I think because we explained everything to the board prior, which we thought we were streamlining the process. And this, if you had 2 hours, I could explain this whole process. But so to bring this back to the board, this was a step that Mr. McDaniel just said, just send me a memo. You can probably help. Send me a memo, and he said we'll just streamline the process.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well, I guess that would be my question too. We understood that you wanted to raise her salary so it'd be in line with your other manager, but we didn't know, or maybe I missed something, but I didn't know it was going to be 2 steps. So this is kind of
I think we explained that it was going to be.
I didn't
Okay.
understand.
Oh, yeah, we explained that we wanted to bring them to the same pay level, which was a step 4.
Yeah, during that conversation, I mentioned the fact that this was a large increase, and they did respond by saying that it would be phased in, and that it was an increase. And I mean, granted, we didn't know that it was an exceptional.
That's right. I didn't know about the exceptional.
Now, keep in mind that this will change her evaluation date and Don's evaluation date. So they will not get another evaluation from a year from the date that this goes into effect. So this won't be, she won't get a raise now and then she'll get a raise in 6 months. It'll be another year before this will come back for Don and Candace to be considered for a raise.
Okay. The attorney?
I'm still troubled by the lack of criteria to determine what exceptional circumstances are.
Well, there is a paragraph that you wrote. If you want me to read it,
I read
I
that.
will.
I didn't bring it with me.
Candace
I'm sorry.
Meredith has been employed with the county since 2000 and has gained extensive experience and knowledge in government accounting, finance, and management. Candace's exemplary work at the Lancaster County Treasurer's Office exceed the expectations of the nature of the work. So in my mind, 2 weeks ago, we put the job descriptions in place. We weren't really talking about people. We were talking about the 2 job descriptions. And now we're working to get Candace into the spot of the description we approved 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, which we thought was approved 2 weeks ago. But apparently because of the wording, don't ask me, but apparently because of the wording, according to personnel, we just needed to bring it back and get another vote from the board on it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Larry?
So,
Could you have done it in 2 separate steps? 1 step now, 1 step maybe in 6 months to bring us up?
well, we'd write the same letter and we'd have to go back through it again.
But it would have been possible to do it that way.
Yeah, it would have been possible.
Okay. Richard?
And this is basically just Richard Graber, Deputy County Attorney. This is basically in summation of what many people have said this morning. The action taken a month ago was essentially a referred matter from the Personnel Policy Board, which is the board that kind of governs personnel issues under state law for the county. The Personnel Department had brought to them information which showed that not so much Candace Meredith or Don Art, but that the actual
job positions of real estate manager and DMV manager were underpaid as compared to comparable entities. Based on that information, the Personnel Board referred to the County Board action essentially raising the pay grade for those two positions. Intermingled in that, there was this request from the Treasurer's Department to, after the pay raise went into effect for the change in the classification, raising the pay grade of those two positions, to also raise Candace one additional step. You can't do it any other way other than the way it's procedurally been put before you. Essentially what you're hearing today is a request or an application for an exceptional circumstances award. You are the body that actually determines whether that award has merit. They're essentially just applying for it or requesting it. So their basis for it is essentially what they've included in the paper application, and it's up to you guys as a board to decide whether or not to issue the award, and the benefit of the award would be the one-step pay increase. So,
Yes, Todd.
Just one clarification. So if we go ahead and approve this exceptional circumstance, it will allow Candace, who's the real estate manager, to be paid the same amount as the manager for real estate. I'm sorry, motor vehicles.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
We're just trying to bring an equal pay.
We started this 4 years ago. It's just coming to fruition now. We have the money in our budget. We've budgeted for it. She's severely underpaid compared to everybody else that has her job.
It's probably worth pointing out that this is only about $1 increase per hour.
Very true. Yes, it is only about $1 increase per hour.
But I still think you need to know why you're recommending this. I mean, this sounds like a pretty lofty designation, exceptional circumstances. And I read the letter here from Doug Daniel and from Andy.
Mm-hmm.
That's boilerplate language, I think.
Well, and my defense is I was told that this is just going to be a formality.
Not with this board.
Well, I know, but that's what I was told, that this was just going to be a formality. That, in fact, I didn't even think we'd be having a discussion about this. So,
Yeah.
I apologize.
And who told you that? Personnel? Okay. Well, certainly Candace has done a wonderful job. Her investment policies I think have served this county well. I just would have preferred that we do it one step at a time. But we'll see what the rest of the board wants to do.
In her defense, it's a matter of just bringing them up to equal pay. She's been with the county, I think, 12 years plus. And Don's been with the county 3 years. And Don's actually making more money than Candace is making. And they're both managers. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of to try, to bring them up to the same pay. I mean, it's, if you look at the time served and the equality of pay, that kind of flies in the face of a long-term county employee as opposed to a short-term.
Larry? How
many people do Candace and how many people do Don supervise?
Well, Don has 4 supervisors, and then he's got
both offices, the Westo and the 43rd both.
That's correct. So Don's got 4 supervisors. Each supervisor has about 6 or 7 employees. Candace is third in charge, so if Bill and I are out of town or at a conference, she's in charge. She's got 8, maybe 10.
Mm-hmm. Right, but she doesn't have...
And Don would have about 24?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but Don, we liken this to Candace, Don are captains, and then Don has actually 4 sergeants that then supervise below him. Candace doesn't have anybody that supervises below her.
And I just want to clarify that personnel, based upon their research and comparabilities, have determined that the job descriptions are equal and are equal in pay range.
Right. And this went before the Personnel Board as well.
Based upon that recommendation, I move approval of the circumstance award.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this request for exceptional circumstances award. Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore?
Yes.
Hudkins?
No.
Avery?
Abstain.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 3 yes, 1 abstention, 1 no.
Thank you.
Next is 4E, and county attorney is...
It was 4E going to be held?
Yes, 4E is held per county attorney.
Mm-hmm.
F is a recommendation from the purchasing department and the county engineering department to award a bid for bid number 15-45. This is for project number 15-14 to interstate sealant and concrete for crack sealing by bituminous pavement in amount of $61,210.
Okay.
Our estimate.
Excuse me, introduce yourself, please.
Pam Dingman, Lancaster County Engineer. Our estimate and budget for this particular item was $100,000. So with the volatile prices of petroleum and petroleum-based products, I was a little nervous about how this bid might come in. The bid did come in substantially lower than the engineer's estimate, which is good. It gives us some room to do a few other things this year. But we are recommending that you award this contract to this contractor.
Okay.
Do you have somewhere to spend the remaining $40,000?
It's a high possibility it will be spent on radios and/or other computer technology.
Good to know. Move approval.
I'd second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this recommendation. Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Avery?
Yes.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Hudgens?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. G is an amendment to county contract C-12-653 with Egan Supply Company for annual supply of ice melt. The amendment increases the county's maximum expenditures to $6,000 for the contract term.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this amendment. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Hudgens?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Avery? Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. H is a subdivision agreement with Land 2 LLC regarding a community unit plan for the Preserve at Cross Creek 7th Edition on property generally located at South 63rd Street and Roca Road.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the subdivision agreement. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Avery?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Hudgens?
Yes.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. 4I is a contract between K2 Construction and Lancaster County for county snow removal, truck-mounted snowplow services on an as-needed basis. The cost of the county shall be $140 per hour per truck-mounted plow. Term of the agreement is 1 year from the date of execution.
Okay. Pam?
Pam Dingman, Lancaster County Engineer. So because we have the Boy Scouts in the back today, right, Scouts? I might go ahead and say that, sometimes everything doesn't go as planned up here. So Lancaster County was left off the hourly snow removal bid for private contractors this year. And we do on occasion, if we have significant snow events, augment our crews with private contractors. So we let this separate contract actually quite a while ago. And it's only now been through the full execution process and been returned. So that's why I come before you today when it's 70 degrees, asking you to approve a contract for snow removal. But that being said, this contract will be good for 1 year, so we'll be able to augment our crews with this. Next year, when it goes out to bid for the city of Lincoln, it will be the city of Lincoln and Lancaster County, so that should we need to augment our crews with private services, we will have the ability to do that.
Larry?
Is the $140 an hour in line with what the city bid?
It is comparable, Commissioner Hudgens.
Okay, thank you.
And we can have snow still in March and in April.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Okay.
The last major snowstorm, I did send you guys an email, cost the county approximately $70,000 in overtime and materials. So I'm hoping that we don't have that cost again this year.
Okay. Okay.
I will move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this contract. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Hudgens?
Yes.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Avery?
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. J is a contract between K2 Construction and Lancaster County for county snow removal motor grader services on an as-needed basis. The cost of county shall be $115 per hour per truck. Term of the agreement is 1 year from the date of execution.
And I'm assuming that this is pretty much the same sort of thing. Is that correct, Pam?
Pam Dingman, Lancaster County Engineer. It's a good thing I'm wearing my tennis shoes today. So we have one price for a truck-mounted plow, and we have a second price for a motor grader. So in the county, when we remove snow, we have two different operations. We use the motor graders on the gravel roads, and we use the snow plows or truck-mounted plows on the pavement.
I just had one question.
Yes, you had.
The amounts, I guess I would be naive. I would think it would be the exact opposite. I would think that the motor grader would be more expensive than a truck-mounted plow.
You know, our contractors put in the bids that they put in. I would have expected the motor grader to be a little bit more expensive also, because it's a more expensive piece of equipment and because of the amount of diesel fuel it uses, but this is what the contractor bid.
Well, I think we'll probably
Take it.
to pay attention to it next year, but that was my point too. It costs a lot more to operate an auto patrol than it does a truck, and so they need to fine tune those bids because, you know, in the previous one I questioned the price on the truck and asked you if it was comparable. So maybe we might want to even bid that out separate next year, but we'll let you take a look at it.
Thank you, Commissioner Hudkins.
I would move approval of the contract.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this contract. Any further discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Hudkins,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. K is an amendment to County Contract C-13-111 with Halls Culligan for the annual supply of water softener salt. The amendment renews the agreement for an additional 1-year term from March 8th, 2015 to March 7th, 2016.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this contract with Halls Culligan. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Avery,
Yes.
Hudkins,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. L is an amendment to County Contract C-14-246 with Recycling Enterprises of Nebraska, Inc. for recycling services. The amendment renews the agreement for an additional 1-year term from February 1st, 2015 to January 31st, 2016.
Move approval?
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this amendment to county contract for recycling services. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Hudkins,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. 4M is an amendment to County Contract C-12-173 with 3M Company Traffic Safety Systems for the annual requirements to supply and deliver reflective sheeting. The amendment renews the agreement for an additional 1-year term from February 1st, 2015 to January 31st, 2016.
I move approval.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this amendment to county contract. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Hudkins,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. N is an amendment to County Contract C-14-47 with Select Van and Storage Mayflower Transit for moving services on an as-needed basis. The amendment renews the agreement for an additional 1-year term from January 28th, 2015 to January 27th, 2016.
Move approval?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this amendment. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Hudkins.
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Amundson. Motion carries 5-0. O is an amendment to County Contract C-14-45 with Office Interiors and Designs, Inc. for moving services on an as-needed basis. The amendment renews the agreement for an additional 1-year term from January 28, 2015 to January 27th, 2016.
Move approval?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this amendment to this county contract. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Avery,
Yes.
Hudgens,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. P is an amendment to County Contract C-14-46 with Black Belt Movers for moving services on an as-needed basis. The amendment renews the agreement for an additional one-year term from January 28th, 2015 to January 27th, 2016.
Move approval?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this amendment. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Hudgens,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. 4Q is approval of the Lancaster County's Flexible Benefits Plan and Summary Plan Description. The county previously approved a business associate agreement and administrative services agreement with Flex Plan Services, Inc. for the ongoing administration of Lancaster County's Flexible Benefits Plan and Health Flexible Spending Agreement. Approval of the plan documents is required by Flex Plan Services, Inc.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Lancaster County's Flexible Benefits Plan and Plan Description. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Hudgens,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 5 is consent items. Receive and place on file the following monthly reports for February 2015. County Clerk, County Assessor, Register of Deeds, Clerk of the District Court, Records and Information Management. Right-of-way contract with Richard and Diana Slama at Northwest 84th and West Adams in the amount of $428.
I will move approval of the consent items?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent items. Please call the roll.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Hudgens,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Amundson. Motion carries 5-0. Next is number 6, public comment. Those wishing to speak on items relating to county business not on the agenda may do so at this time.
I guess at this point in time, I would like to recognize the Boy Scouts that we have in the back. And are you? Yeah, stand up. Yeah. And tell us what unit or what group are you from, and are you here for your government award, or why are you here?
We're Troop 12, and we're here to fulfill citizenship in the community.
Okay.
Requirements for that are bad, so.
All right. Well, very good. And you're utilizing your spring break, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce yourselves and where you're from, where you go to school?
I'm Holden Sutter, and I go to Southeast High School.
Mhm.
I'm Pearson, and I go to Southeast. I'm Xander, and I go to Southeast. I'm Nick Garrison,
Okay. So you're all Southeast people, and
Good school. My son graduated from that. And he was an Eagle Scout. Stay with it, guys.
yeah, stay
It
with
matters.
And yeah, my son too was an Eagle Scout, and it's a great thing. And the leader, you need to introduce yourself too.
Brian Rocky, that's his dad.
Okay, well, very good. I tell you what, yeah. And you know, there's one thing about being a Scout leader. I was a Girl Scout leader for 12 years. It's a great deal of time that you put into it and a lot deal of effort, but it is all so much worth it. So thank you for doing that, and thanks, guys, for coming.
Gentlemen.
And if you make Eagle, it'll be because of your mother.
That's right.
I think Commissioner Dingman or Engineer Dingman would agree with that.
You have a son that's coming up now for Eagle Scout?
I do. I actually have, my oldest son is an Eagle Scout, and my youngest son, we just haven't had his ceremony.
And that's on the 29th? Good, okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, and Gary, thank you for being patient.
Chair Amundson, members of the board, for the record, Gary Aldridge, ALDRIDGE 68516. I'm one of the owners. I have only 4 pages today in 5 minutes, so I'm going to finish quickly. Some of you may think, who was that flash when I leave? I'm going to step back and make an observation first. To get here from where I live, about a mile east of South Point Pavilions, I have to operate a motor vehicle in Lincoln, Lancaster County, Nebraska. So my blood pressure is up about 80 points. Aldridge v. North Platte, Nebraska School Board. A petition or complaint introduced in Lincoln County District Court. The petition alleged a political subdivision ignored a section or sections of the open meeting law. I'll come back to that down the road. Quote, always mystify, mislead, and surprise, end quote. Always mystify, mislead, and surprise. Attributed to Thomas Jonathan Jackson, Lieutenant General, Confederate States Army. Perhaps there is a nugget, wisdom, or foolishness contained therein. I will let you mine it. Once again, I come for clarity. I am confused about the board. So I ask you to help me understand. Carrie Egan, currently, at some time in the future another, is Chief Administrative Officer. That is the title or position of Mr. Egan on the board website. That would compare to a COO of a corporation. Corporations have directors. Lancaster County has commissioners. Corporations have a chief executive, a CEO. For the United States, the chief executive is a president. For a state, the chief executive is a governor. For Lancaster County, is the chief executive the chair of the Board of Commissioners, the middle seat, whoever that is.
It's a plural executive. The entire county board is the executive for Lancaster County.
Mm-hmm. Larry?
So it's not one person in a seat. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. Unlike a city council, which has a council and then you have a mayor that's the administrative officer, actually county boards are administrative and policy making both. That is the chief difference.
It's the entire board. All right, thank you.
Okay. But the chair is the one that speaks for the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, please proceed with the announcements.
Next is number 7, announcements. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold a staff meeting on Thursday, March 12, 2015 at 8:30 a.m. in the Bill Luxford studio of the County City Building. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold their next regular meeting on Tuesday, March 17, 2015 at 10:30 a.m. in room 112 of the County City Building with the Board of Equalization immediately following. County Commissioners can be reached at 402-441-7447 or commish@lancaster.ne.gov. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners meeting is broadcast live. It is rebroadcast on Tuesday and Saturday on 5 City TV, Cable Channel 5. In addition, the meeting may be viewed on the internet at lancaster.ne.gov under 5 City TV, Video on Demand, or 5 City TV on YouTube.
I move we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. She's here for board of equalization.
Okay. Yeah, okay, okay. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn.
I didn't hear who did the, okay.
Okay. And
Deb moved it and I seconded it.
Okay.
please call the roll.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Hudkins,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, and now we will open the County Board of Equalization.
Copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the wall at the rear of the hearing room. Additionally, a copy of all written material to be discussed at today's open meeting is available from the county clerk's staff. The material can also be viewed on the county's website at lancaster.ne.gov. Also in attendance this morning is Scott Gaines from the county assessor's office. Agenda item 1 are minutes. Approval of minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2015.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. Is it, any additions or corrections? Please call the roll.
Avery?
Yes.
Hudkins?
Yes.
Shore?
Abstain.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4 yes, 1 abstention. Number 2 are additions and deductions to the tax assessment rolls.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the additions and deductions. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Hudkins?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Avery?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 3 is a public hearing, motor vehicle tax exemption application for Alzheimer's Association Nebraska chapter and the Catholic Bishop of Lincoln.
Okay, we will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone to speak in support of these exemption applications? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to? Is there anyone in a neutral position? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and please proceed.
I would move that we approve the exemption applications.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve these exemption applications. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore?
Yes.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Avery?
Yes.
Hudkins?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 4 is appeal of homestead exemption rejection. This is for Beverly Kaplan and David Kaplan.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Lyford. I am the daughter of Beverly and David Kaplan, and I've asked for the hearing this morning. My mother was granted a homestead exemption on the property in which she lived at 8901 Hickman Road in Hickman, and she resided there throughout 2014 until she was hospitalized in July 2014, and then she has gone to live in a nursing home at the end of July 2014. And the homestead exemption has been taken away because she transferred ownership of the property in July 2014, and I'm asking for at least a prorated homestead exemption for the period of time that she lived in the property and it was her residence, and that would be through July 2014.
Chair.
Yes.
Isn't there a state law that bars you from qualifying for a homestead exemption if you don't own and occupy at least through the 15th of August? Are you asking for a waiver? We can't waive a state law.
Well, in a letter that I got, I thought that there was a waiver of the, or that there could be a proration of the year and that you didn't lose the homestead exemption entirely.
I'll briefly start for the county. Richard Grabo, Deputy Lancaster County Attorney. For the record for this matter, I have 3 different exhibits. One is a certified copy of a quitclaim deed from Beverly Kaplan to Samuel Kaplan, who I believe is her son. The second exhibit, and I would ask Mr. Clerk to pass that around to the board members. The second exhibit is a notice of it's a certified copy of a notice of rejection of homestead exemption. That was for the property that's been referred to by Ms. Lyford. It's the situs address 8901 Hickman Road. The third exhibit is the original application for the tax year in question, and it is also a certified copy from the assessor's office. And I'd ask that Mr. Clerk also pass that around. To Commissioner Avery's point, it is the county's position that it's not a requirement that can be waived. The requirement you're speaking of exists in 77-3502, and essentially it goes to the definition of what a homestead is. To be a homestead, it requires that the person, kind of the applicant or the person in question, live as be the owner of record in the residence from January 1 to August 15th. Obviously, unfortunately, Ms. Kaplan was not. And because of that, there's no proration that the county is aware of. And the county would ask that the matter be denied. Ms. Lyford would have an opportunity to appeal to the Tax Equalization Review Commission should she take issue with the board's decision in this matter. We'd also add that upon rejection by the county assessor, state law requires the applicant to appeal to the Board of Equalization within 30 days. And I believe if you kind of piece together all the different documents here, I don't believe she was able to get that appeal timely filed. And I'll allow Scott Gaines to maybe kind of get a little more of the details that I've left out to give you the bigger picture. Thank you.
Good morning, Scott Gaines, Deputy Assessor, Register of Deeds. Richard covered it pretty well. To qualify for the homestead exemption, in which the state will reimburse the county for the tax dollars lost, it does require that the owner, you have to own and occupy it January 1 through August 15th inclusive. If her mother had simply moved to the hospital or been in the nursing home during that period, the statute does account for that situation. When the ownership transfers, there really is no subjectivity involved in the situation anymore. They're no longer the owner through August 15th. We're required to send the notice of rejection that she did receive.
So I guess really it is a matter of the state law.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the state's reimbursing those tax dollars, so they get to make the laws that we have to follow. You bet.
Regrettably, that's the way the law is, and if she had been transferred to a nursing home, the furniture had been in there and it hadn't been rented out to somebody else or something, we'd have a little leeway to do something about it. But the way it is, it's something that the legislature has handed down to us. So regrettably, I will move that we deny the request.
May we see that other exhibit?
I think we have two.
Yes,
I think
I'm
we have
sorry.
two of them. Three.
Oh,
Yeah. We still
I have
more
two.
coming.
It's just two that were handed to us.
oh, okay, here's the other one.
Okay. We don't do handouts very well. Okay, I think they're four.
The quitclaim deed is what I referred to, which was executed on July 4th, 2014.
I think there's four different exhibits, correct?
I think there's the claim, and then there's the 3 exhibits.
Okay.
The original application,
Got it.
one is a notice of denial, and the other one is the quitclaim deed itself.
Okay. We're good.
So it's been moved and seconded that we deny the claim. Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Avery,
I don't do this with any enthusiasm, but I'm going to vote no.
Hudgens,
No. Sorry.
The
You're
move
gonna
is
Mr.
vote
Clerk,
yes.
I meant
Motion
yes.
is to deny.
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Hudgens,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes, and that is absolutely because of the state law.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the circumstances, but we just can't do anything about it.
Okay. Motion carries 5-0. Next is public comment. Those wishing to speak on items relating to County Board of Equalization business not on the agenda may do so at this time.
I move we
Being no
adjourn.
one? Okay.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Please call the roll.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Hudgens,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.